Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 139, The Power of Your Blessed State. This is the Rise Up and Share Your Medicine podcast. My name is Lisa Espinosa, and I'm a spiritual career coach. And I coach helpers, change makers, visionaries, all of you who have had a longing, a prayer, an intention all of your life probably, to be of service, to help, to bring about new solutions, to anchor more light into the planet. There's so many different ways to express that, but the key is that yes, you know that you're here to make a difference and that you're here to share your unique gifts with the world. And so the way I help my clients is helping them to cultivate the thoughts, the beliefs, the self-identities, the self-concepts, the emotions that will support that transformation, right? Meaning releasing any martyr identities, which I refer to that term, any behaviors like overextending, self sacrifice, self abandonment, minimizing your worth, your expertise, all of those that are unfortunately very common for helpers. So I coach my clients on how to release those so that you can fully step into that sovereign helper identity, which is when you can create the most impact and share your gifts with the most authenticity, the most love in a way that's fulfilling and fills you up and isn't about burning out. So, in these weekly podcasts, I share just important teachings about that journey. And a lot of times, I'm really unwinding spiritual teachings that have gotten distorted through not just organized religion, that's one reason, but for lots of different reasons. It's not important to go into all of that today. But this episode is going to be all about blessings. What does it mean? It's called, right, the power of your blessed state. So what does it mean to bless? What does it mean to be blessed? How does that get confused? And why is it so important to get real clear about that? And my intention for this episode is to help you really step into your power as a blesser. You are here to bless the world, to bless people, situations, locations. I mean, blessing is infinite. We're going to specifically talk about blessing other people today. You'll be able to apply that to other things just because that's a good first step. And so the intention is, yes, that you get clarity on where you might have thought errors about it. And also, how do you bless with the most power and the most joy? Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. I have my little notes here to make sure I don't get off topic. So this is the thing with blessing, right? Blessing has nothing to do with depletion or self-sacrifice. Like blessing, being able to bless is something that every human has the power to do. It's our divine inheritance. And blessing has two components that most people, especially if you're drawn to my work, are aware of, right? One is that you have an intention for the well-being of somebody else, the well-being, the healing, the transformation of someone else. Now, this could be a loved one, this could be a client, a student, this could be a stranger on the street. Maybe you're walking down the street and you see somebody and your heart just fills with care and you're like, oh, you have this. You might not even think I want to bless that person, but that's what's coming up in your heart, right? Because your soul, the divine, even I think really like those divine beings like ascended masters and guardian angels, they guide us on who we're here to bless. So that's the first ingredient. Let's think about it as ingredients, okay? So one is you have this intention of well-being for someone else. The second component, the second ingredient is that you, in some level, you understand that the blessing isn't coming from your humanity. It's coming from your soul, and even further beyond, it's coming from the divine, from spirit, from God, from the universe, whatever word you want to use, from the creator, the creatrix. And you understand that you can be a channel of that for others, right? You're like a straw, right? Like a flute. There's so many metaphors, but that the divine God can like send this blessing through you to someone else. So for many helpers, especially, we're clear on that. Maybe not in those words, but we understand like, oh, when you're guided, like if you're a parent, if you're a mom or a dad, like you might just feel like, oh, yes, I'm sending my kids a blessing, right? Or your students and clients, as I said. Now, what is the missing ingredient? The overlooked component that is so essential. That's the key here. And what that is embodying your own blessed state. This is the ingredient that most of us neglect, forget, aren't even aware of, can actually be resisting. So I want to really dissect that in this moment. So what is your blessed state? Your blessed state is a frequency. And everyone has it. It's not just helpers. All humans have access to it. But many of us don't access it for different reasons. But as a helper, it is your divine responsibility. I really believe that, to access it. And so it's this divine frequency that happens when you recognize how blessed you are. When you stop resisting the blessings that God, the divine, the universe is bestowing upon you. And how can you resist them? So as helpers, we've often gone through a lot of traumatic experiences. You might have experienced lack or scarcity. You might have experienced neglect. You might have experienced trauma. You might have experienced caretakers that were meant to take care of you actually not doing that and maybe even hurting you or things like that. So there's just countless of reasons why we can carry all sorts of wounds that really limit our capacity to embody that blessed state. We might not feel worthy of it. We might unconsciously think it's not safe. We might worry other people will be jealous of us. We might worry that if we fully accept our blessed state, that something bad's going to happen. I mean, there's all sorts of craziness and I say that with so much love and compassion because I've done all of the things. But when you start to understand, wait a minute, when I cultivate that blessed state, what happens? First of all, you are more in alignment with your soul, because what is the blessed state? It's basically you saying to your soul, okay, I'm open to receive all of the blessings that you have here for me. I don't want to resist them anymore. I don't want to limit them. I'm open to receive them. And now, even saying that, sometimes your soul will recognize that there's some healing that needs to happen before you can fully receive them. Not because your soul's holding out on you, but because we still have limits. And so that's part of, when I coach my clients, a lot of times we're doing that work, like helping those parts of them that don't feel worthy or that unconsciously push the blessing away and all of that. But just you setting that intention of like, okay, I'm open to the blessings. I'm open to receive that, to connect with that blessed state. That starts to bring you into that frequency. And so this is really important. When you are then in that frequency and being in that blessed state, the way you can bless others is magnified. The impact is like exponential. Why? I'm going to try to explain this because some of these things are hard to put words into, but we're doing good here. So remember what I said the two ingredients were before. One, you have an intention of well-being. You have a desire to bless someone, right? You want to bless them with healing or with abundance or transformation or whatever it is. You might not even know the specifics, but you have that calling. Two, you understand at some level that the blessing isn't coming from your human self. It's coming from your soul. It's coming from the divine, that you are just a channel, right, to bless. Those two are very powerful, but we want to take it to the next level, right? That zone of miracles. And so then if you combine that with you tapping into that blessed state frequency, now suddenly when you bless someone, your blessing contains that energy of receiving the blessing. I know this is kind of like a mental calisthenics, right? That feels like, wait, what? But this is what I'm saying. So let's just say you're walking down the street and somebody's there and you're guided. You just have this, like it's happened to me. I'm walking down the street or I'm in the airport. That happens often in the airport where I'm there and suddenly I just see someone and something inside of me knows like, oh, that person needs a blessing. It's not even like I don't have to know the details, but it's like God's like, okay, Lisa, you weren't put here by accident. That woman needs a blessing. And I don't mean like I go up to her and tell her this, right? This is like all internal. And of course, we also understand that there's free choice, right? We never force a blessing onto someone. We could channel the blessing and they might not receive it. And that's like none of our business. We don't need to worry about that. But if in that moment, I first of all have that intention of well-being to send well-being to this person. Two, I understand that I'm just a channel. It's not coming from my human self. It's not coming from my intellect. I'm like a channel and God, the divine, is blessing through me. That's the second ingredient. Now, if in that moment I also align with that blessed state, and I'm going to give you steps for that, but that feeling of I'm blessed, that I am in receptivity, receiving the blessings from my soul. When I send that blessing, that person who receives it, if they're ready to receive it, are not just going to receive whatever's coming from the divine, but they're receiving this frequency that I'm holding of receiving the blessing. It's like you're making it easier for them to receive the blessing. So when those three things are together, our capacity to bless, the impact we can have as blessers is magnified. So this goes back to that, mantra, prayer, whatever you want to call it, that Mother Mary gave me years ago. I know some of you have heard me speak of this, but if you haven't, I'll repeat it here. And when I talk about Mother Mary and really any ascended master, or in Buddhism, they would call them bodhisattvas, right? Those divine beings that led a human life at some point and then they ascended. And they're so loving and compassionate. They're sticking around to help us, right, in our human journey. Mother Mary is one of those. I'm not talking about any sort of religious dogma. And Mother Mary just happens to be one that I really connect with. So years ago when I was in meditation, I honestly don't remember specifically what I was doing, but I know I wasn't like washing dishes. I either had just finished meditating or I was praying, and I heard that phrase that had been connecting with Mother Mary, and she said, "You are blessed and you are a blessing." This was years ago. And I thought it was so beautiful, but it took me quite some time to understand that and like to really unpack it and notice my resistance to it. Like I kind of felt like, ooh, I'm blessed. I'm sorry, I'm getting a message. Okay, I don't know. Okay. It was a message from Facebook, so I apologize if anyone on Facebook's having a problem. So there was a lot of like thoughts that I had about like, oh, it's like conceited to say that I'm blessed, or I mean, it was all sorts of things, right? So it took me time to really unpack and work with my coach and work with my practices to like really allow myself to receive that blessing. I really felt like it was a blessing from Mother Mary. And I also knew it wasn't just for me. I knew that immediately, that she was bestowing that upon me to bestow it upon especially all of the helpers, right? Because that's who I serve. It's like she was saying, they need to know that they are blessed and that they are a blessing. But in order for that to happen is we need both of those ingredients. They need to receive the blessings. They need to open to receiving the frequency of being blessed. And that might be a journey. That might take some work. And in that, as you do that, and I want to be clear, it's not that just the process, just the intention of it already starts to magnify your ability to bless others. And so as you embody that, as you keep affirming, I am blessed and I am a blessing, your ability to bless gets expanded. And furthermore, what I'm recognizing is that it's almost like God, the universe, the divine is like, oh, she's working on this. All right, we can send her more people to bless. And yes, some of that might be more clients, more students, more customers, whatever your work is. But some of it very well is strangers again. You're at the airport, you're driving, you're in the store, you're whatever. There's all sorts of ways. I mean, people need blessings, right? And again, this isn't a religious thing. This isn't about convincing people of anything. This isn't about you actually walking up to someone and saying this, unless it's very obvious that that's an appropriate thing to do, right? And we also respect everybody's free will choice. So I trust that if I'm guided to send somebody a blessing, they have a soul, they have a higher self. And there is something about the fact that sometimes, for example, sometimes somebody sent us a blessing and we're just not ready for it. So I really believe it just kind of hovers in our aura. It's just there. It's just there until we're ready to receive it. So sometimes you might be guided to send a blessing to someone and just know that they might not receive it then, but they'll receive it the next day or the next week or the next year. It will be saved for them. This is why we have to be so detached, right? Especially if it's somebody that you know, that you're close to. That can be the hardest blessings, because if you, let's say it's a child or a client that's suffering, and you send them a blessing and you're like, but nothing has changed. They're still suffering. Nothing's different. And our ego and our intellect can really bring the frequency down. But when you understand, we're not talking about linear time. It's really none of our business. Like, we really need to detach, like be open. That's what being in the zone of miracles is that we trust that there is a divine timing and we can't control it. And many times we won't even know all the details of it. And that's okay. All right. So I'm just looking at my notes here. Okay. So how do you cultivate a blessed state for you? One is you want to be very clear, start to be very clear on what are the blessings in your life? What have you been blessed with? And this can be challenging. It's so interesting because I feel like as helpers, on the one hand, it comes very natural to us to be grateful, to, notice the miracles of life and pay attention to the beauty. But on the other hand, as helpers, you go through a lot of initiations. And what is that? What is an initiation? It's a transformative experience, often a challenging one, right? Whatever that is. You're starting your own business and the challenges of building your business. You're, being called to have a different type of client. And that's very challenging because your current clients, you're going to have to set boundaries with them or say no to them as you open to the new. Or maybe someone you love gets diagnosed with something, or you get diagnosed with something, or a loss. I mean, there's so many things. And in those moments, it is very natural as a human to not feel blessed. Like it's natural to in that moment not necessarily be walking around thinking, I'm so blessed. And so we have to understand that it is our responsibility to cultivate that. And some of the biggest gains in your blessed state happen when through the physical eyes, you might not appear to be blessed. So maybe there's not a lot of money in your bank account, or all of the examples I gave before. That is like very fertile, rich time to actually say, okay, beautiful soul, okay, God, okay, divine, through my physical eyes, this does not look like a blessing at all. But I know that I'm always blessed. So help me, show me, help me see how I'm blessed. And maybe you have blessings of abundance. Maybe you have blessings of wisdom. Maybe you have blessings of being able to breathe openly. Maybe you have blessings of being able to walk in nature. I mean, I don't know. You're going to have to tap in because it's different than gratitude. There's an overlap, but it's different. It's like you really have to have that conversation with your heart, with your soul. Like, how have I been blessed? Like just ask that, like, what has been my blessing? So I know for me, as I've been in that conversation, I can recognize that, oh, I've been really blessed with having a very deep longing to connect with God since I was a little girl. And my parents weren't religious. I mean, they were Catholic, but thank goodness, I'm very grateful they were not dogmatic Catholic. That came later in my life, in a different stage of my life. But when I was young, they were kind of, I guess, what you would call lapsed Catholics. But interestingly enough, my dad was very much loved Jesus. So, which was perfect. And so I always had a very deep, very natural longing to connect with God. It didn't come from Bible school. It didn't come from my parents telling me I should. It didn't come from going to church. It just like was a very natural thing. And that spark I had took me through so many dark times in my life, like very, very dark times that I look back and I'm like, how did I survive that? Or how did I know that? And it's because I always had that deep longing and that deep knowing. And I know that I was blessed with that. I really believe God was like, okay, you're going to have a whole lot of awful things you're going to go through and moments where it's going to be really dark and things are going to feel very heavy and it might even feel hopeless. But at that point, you're always going to have this longing, this knowing. And so that's a blessing. I know that I'm like, oh, I was blessed with that. And so you want to really tap into what is the way you've been blessed. Yes, it might be material things that now are coming into your life. That's amazing. But it goes deeper than that, because there's in the moments when it might not seem, where it might be harder to access that blessed state, you want to come back to that. Okay, so you're going to cultivate that. And I also would invite you to use Mother Mary's, gift that she gave us, that blessing of you are blessed and you are a blessing. You can repeat that as a mantra. I am blessed and I am a blessing. Even if your mind argues and you're like, I don't fully get that. How am I blessed? This awful thing is happening. How am I a blessing? I don't even feel like I could be a blessing right now. Even if those things are happening in those moments, again, it's really rich time. It's fertile time for you to cultivate more of your blessed state. Okay, so what is the practice for embodiment? And I have the steps here. Okay, so let me rephrase that. Practical steps to bless others. Okay, these are like the steps. And if you joined late, please go back and listen to the beginning too, because I go over this in more detail. Step 1 is that you have an intention, a longing, a calling, whatever word resonates, for the highest good of someone, the well-being of someone. It could be someone you love dearly. It could be a client or student. It could be strangers on the street. It could be the world at large, humanity. It could be that you watch the news and you happen to read some awful thing that happens to someone and you're like really called from a higher place to bless that person. Like, not that you're going to call them up or find out their information. This is energetic, right? So that's step 1. Step 2 is you remind yourself, that you are a channel, because if you have that longing, it's coming from your soul. It's coming from God. It's coming from the divine. Like God's tapping you on the shoulder saying, hey, that person needs a blessing. Can you be the conduit for it? Can you be the channel for it? And we always have free will choice and we could always ignore it and say no. But if you're a helper, if you're a change maker, if you're a visionary, if you're watching this, you're one of those people that signed up for saying yes, right? So the second step is that you're open to being a channel for that it's not coming from me. It's not coming from my intellect. It's coming from beyond me, from my soul, from the divine. That's step 2. Then the missing ingredient, the one that this episode is really bringing to your awareness, is as you do that, you are connecting, you're infusing, you're aligning with that quality, that frequency of your blessed state. And this will happen through the practice I talked about before. So you want to, in between, be cultivating that feeling of like, I am blessed and I am a blessing, so that when you get to the blessing others, you can conjure it up sooner, quicker. But I want to say this, your intention is the most powerful thing. So if you're in a situation where you're being called to bless someone and you're like, but I don't feel blessed right now, don't skip the blessing. Just be very honest with God, with your soul. Just say, I feel guided to bless this person. I know I'm a channel for it. In this moment, I don't feel blessed, but I have the intention. I know that I am actually blessed, even if I don't feel it right now. And like that, just that is expanding and weaving that into the blessing that's going to go forth. All right, so those are the 3 magical steps. And I want to remind you, tomorrow is the Sovereign Helper Retreat. In that retreat, it's a virtual retreat for 2 hours, 12 o'clock Central US time. It will be recorded. And this isn't going to be a content heavy, this isn't a class. I know I do master classes where I have a PowerPoint and I offer a lot of content, but this isn't like that. This is a ceremonial space. This is a retreat. You're withdrawing for 2 hours to connect with your soul, to connect with Mother Mary, who I feel really is the leader of the helpers, and any other ascended masters, divine beings that show up for us, that love you unconditionally. That's always the prayer, the ask. And what are we going to do during that time? One is you're going to integrate. And you're going to ask your soul to help you look back on the year and reveal to you what are those experiences that now it's time to digest, right? To integrate. This isn't an intellectual process. So don't get overwhelmed like, oh, what am I going to have to do? I will guide you through this journey and your soul will guide you. I'll be doing energy healing and offering journal prompts, and it'll all be with the intention that you're like, okay, I'm taking in the wisdom, the pearls of wisdom, the expansion, the growth, the up-leveled self-concept. And equally important, I'm releasing the waste. I'm releasing the unnecessary. I'm helping my nervous system to recalibrate, especially if there were very challenging things that happened over the year, and your nervous system might still be holding on to some of that. We'll clear that. So then you can align with the vision of your soul, the vision your soul has for you for these September through December and beyond, but we'll focus on this year of like, what is the vision? What are you here still to create? How are you here to be of service, to help, to transform in a way that brings you so much joy and fulfillment? So if that sounds like something you want to do, and I will also be doing in the energy healing work, and remembering the reason I did this podcast today is because I'm going to be really, Mother Mary was like, okay, wants to really activate our ability to bless and to be blessed, right? So that's going to come into this too. And again, this isn't going to be intellectual. It's going to be ceremonial. It's going to be being in that receptive place. The chat, of course, will be available for people to share. And I would love to see you. And I didn't even say this, it's $44, and that includes a free guest ticket. So if you register, you get a free ticket. If there's a friend, a colleague, a loved one that you want to gift it to, you can gift it to them. Just let me know so I know that who they are, so I could I've sent an email already, but I'll send it to you if you sign up, with just kind of like the Zoom link and creative suggestions on how to show up so you can really enjoy it and have a wonderful time with it. The replay will be available for 30 days. All right, I'll put the link to that in the comments. Of course, you can always message me if you have a question. I would love to see you. And otherwise, I will see you next week for podcast episode 140. I'm excited. Wait, I was going to pull a card. I forgot. This is from the Wild Woman Rising, and then we will be done. Okay. We're going to ask the message from your soul about blessings, about you being a blessing to others, about you receiving, stepping into that blessed state. Love it. Number 43. And this, I love this deck. It always has this beautiful goddessy woman and an animal. So we have, this one has a tarantula. It says, tell your story. Look at this. So there is something about that the way you are here to bless others, a big part of it is through your story. Whether you share your story through writing, whether you share it in video clips, whether you share it in conversations, but there's something about your story that is medicine for the world. It doesn't mean you have to share every little detail. But, maybe this is one of the other things in the inner journey that I guide tomorrow for you to kind of tune into, like, okay, what aspect of my story am I being guided to share? Not only because it will bless others, but I'm hearing this because you will be blessed in the sharing of it. And of course, we know spider medicine is all about weaving, connection. And there's something specifically about tarantula, and I'm not remembering right now, so you might want to look that up. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Roxana, and anybody else who's watching, and anyone who's watching in the replay. I'm sending you so much love. Bye.